Yo, what is going on, guys? CWpoke here, back with a brand new VGC 2016 analysis video. And in today's episode, we are going to be analyzing Xerneas, but we're also going to be putting a little bit of a spin-off on this one. We're going to be doing some customized EV spread practice so that I can help you guys out if you were ever confused or asking yourself, how do I do custom EV spreads and why do I do them? We are going to be covering that a little bit today, as well as analyzing this Pokemon. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check out Xerneas' base stats as we always do. Xerneas sits with a 126 base HP value, which is not too bad at all. It does give it some natural bulk, which is pretty good. As far as attack and special attack goes, it sits very well at 131 for both of them, making it fairly offensive just right off the bat. Now, it does have a really good attack stat, and it's got a very diverse move pool, so it has a couple of options it can run. However, you will be often seeing Xerneas run a full-blown special attacking moveset. That doesn't mean it won't be ever running an attack move, but it's usually going to be running special attack, and you guys will see why very shortly if you don't already know why. As far as defense goes, it's got base 95, which is not too bad. It's a little bit better than what we've been seeing by 5 points, but you know, it's still a little frail, so that is something to keep in mind. And that's also going to be the side that you're going to usually want to aim for if you're trying to take out Xerneas. Now for special defense, it's sitting a little bit better at 99 or 98, so it's got, you know, 3 more points, but it is also still fairly frail. However, it does have a move that's going to be using quite often that's going to make that base special defense a lot better, and you guys will see again very soon. And also, of course, same goes for speed. It sits at base 99, which isn't bad, but it's not still the greatest speed tier out there. You know, it's still losing to base 100s or higher, which is a pretty competitive speed tier. So, you know, it doesn't have that going for it, but again, it doesn't matter in the long run. You guys will see why. So let's go ahead and look at the key points, or rather the key point, and that is Geomancy. Yes, okay, so if you guys didn't already know what I was talking about here, Geomancy is Xerneas' special signature move, and what it does is it actually buffs stats. It's a turn 2 move, sort of like Solar Beam. It takes 1 turn to set up and 1 turn to actually do the effect. However, the effect here does not do damage. Instead, it raises Xerneas' special attack by 2, raises special defense by 2, and also raises speed by 2. So basically, it makes it extremely fast, extremely offensive, and on the special defense end, extremely bulky right off the bat. Now there's also something really cool that you can do, and that's called the Power Herb item, which makes turn 2 setup moves only 1 turn. So a lot of Xerneas, if not every single Xerneas out there, is running a Power Herb, so that way it can set up Geomancy and get +2 to those 3 stats in 1 turn, and then it's ready to sweep a lot of teams if they are unprepared. To make that even better, Xerneas is a pure Fairy type attack, and its ability is Fairy Aura. Fairy Aura gives Fairy type moves on the field a 33% boost to their damage, which just makes it even stronger. Not only is it getting the 50% same type attack bonus, not only is it +2 from Geomancy most likely, not only does it have strong single target moves like Moonblast, or you know, partner moves like, or not partner moves, spread moves like Dazzling Gleam, it also gets the boost from its ability, making it incredibly fast and incredibly offensive. Extremely overwhelming if this thing gets set up. So let's go ahead and look at some of its partners. Now, I put 2 Pokemon right here, and this is the big core that is going around right now. Xerneas, Primal Groudon, and Mega Kangaskhan. These 3 are typically on a lot of very strong teams, and for very good reason. They provide a lot of good offensive and defensive synergy together. They all just work extremely well. Primal Groudon is great because Xerneas is a pure fairy, so it doesn't like steel types and it doesn't like fairy types. And, you know, Primal Groudon is fire and ground, so it loves steel types and it loves poison types. So, you know, it doesn't care about Xerneas' weaknesses, and it's able to take them out very easily. Mega Kangaskhan is a little different, but it provides a lot more synergy in the fact that it has Fake Out and it has fast offense. So not only can you Fake Out turn 1 to help Xerneas get that Geomancy set up, you can also hit hard with things like Return and Double Edge, Low Kick, Sucker Punch, and those things will typically always put it into a KO range for any Pokemon that's going to be hitting or getting hit with a +2 Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam. Like, pretty much everything will be one-shotted by that combination. So Kangaskhan just provides that fast offense and also some nice support with Fake Out. Because Xerneas is going to be such a Pokemon reliant on Geomancy and setting up in 1 turn. So let's go ahead now and take a look at some example sets, or rather the pretty much set that everyone uses, and I decided to name it We Are the 99% because this again is basically every Xerneas to nearly an identical, you know, moveset, EV spread and everything. But you're going to want to give it the Power Herb, of course, through that Geomancy. And, you know, spoilers, it's going to have Geomancy on the moveset. And as far as EVs go, it's going to have 4 HP, 252 special attack, and speed, making it as fast and offensive as possible, not worrying too much about defensive calculations and things like that. Now for the nature, you could run Modest. I've seen it a couple times. However, in this instance, I really don't think Modest is the best idea. Not only is Xerneas already incredibly offensive, it's got Geomancy, the Stab, the Fairy Aura, and 252 special attack, but it's going to be very competitive on speed ties with other Xerneas. A lot of people are running Xerneas, and there's going to be a lot of times where they get you know, set up with the Geomancy. So at the very worst, I think you're going to want to opt for the coin flip speed tie rather than knowing that you're going to be outsped by timid variants, even if you're running 252 speed but you're Modest nature. And it's already so offensive, I don't believe Modest is really going to do a whole lot for you. I mean, it's going to make it stronger, of course, but I think a +2, you know, Xerneas is already going to be doing a heck of a lot of damage, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. If you really want to opt for Modest, hey, you know, more power to you, you can go ahead and do it. In this case, I really would stress that Timid's probably the better one to go with. It's just a little bit more reliable. As far as moveset goes, you can run Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam. You want to have that one really strong Fairy type move. So Moonblast doing more damage because it's single target. Dazzling Gleam is spread, so it does a little bit less, but it does hit both the Pokemon on the field. Now for your second move, I like to opt for Dazzling Gleam so I have both the single and the double target. When you have a +2 Xerneas, even a Pokemon that resists Fairy type moves is going to be taking a lot from those. So that's why I like to have 2 Fairy types, just basically a single and a spread attack. But some people like to run for or opt for HP Ground in order to help counter those Steel types that are usually good at stopping Xerneas. You could also run some other movesets. There's some pretty unique options like Thunder. I don't know many off the top of my head. Like I said, this is usually the Xerneas set right here, but there are some interesting moves that you can run, so go ahead and take a peek at Xerneas' move pool and see if there's anything that really would help your team out if you're running a Xerneas, or if you just want to learn even more about it. But as far as other moves go, definitely Geomancy, and you're going to probably want Protect. Xerneas is usually going to be a pretty big target on the field, most people trying to take it out as fast as possible, so it is nice if you kind of read into that and Protect when you need to. So now let's go ahead and look at some common threats. We're going to actually take a sidetrack from looking at the second set, because that's going to be something that we're going to discuss a little bit more in depth. Now some common threats though are typically a lot of bulkier steel types. Ferrothorn, much like a counter to Kyogre, can really stop Xerneas if it doesn't have HP Fire, which, you know, I don't see that a whole lot, but, you know, that could grow in the near future, could already be growing as we speak. So do be on the lookout for HP Fire. That would have the power to stop Ferrothorn, and Pokemon like Scizor as well, who are also very good. But you know, Ferrothorn is really good because it can tank Xerneas' strong hits even at +2. It's not going to like taking those hits, but it can take them, and it can also counter back with Gyro Ball. And because Xerneas is so fast, it's going to be doing a lot of damage. If not, I believe it actually takes it out. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, one that I do know definitely takes it out is Mega Mawile. You have to add some bulk, especially if people run HP Ground. Mega Mawile is the main reason why people run HP Ground on their Xerneas. But if you have a 252 HP Mawile with a little bit of special defense investment, even one of the strongest Xerneas, I guess maybe that might be where Modest comes into play. But you know, it's usually going to be able to take those HP Grounds and easily one-shot it with Iron Head. So be sure to add a Mega Mawile to your team if you're looking for a Mega and you don't have a good stop for Xerneas. Now, if you want to take the more defensive approach and just totally wall out Xerneas, Ho-Oh is another good option. Assuming they're not running HP Rock or HP Water, which is, you know, something I've never seen before, so probably not. Ho-Oh is able to take all of its, you know, strongest hits and dish back some good damage. So Ho-Oh is just another good option to slowly chip away Xerneas and keep it from just completely wreaking havoc. Now, some other interesting options you can do are moves like Knockoff. Knockoff is really cool because if you're faster and you get the Knockoff off before they go for Geomancy, you knock off the Power Herb, meaning that they're stuck with 2 turns of setting up Geomancy, basically leaving them a sitting duck for you to just, you know, get off the field. So that's another cool option. Something like Scarf Landorus is pretty good for that because it can outspeed the Xerneas and it does get knockoff, so you have that. Landorus Therian is also a really good Pokemon in this format. It works, it does a lot of cool things, so it's a very viable option. It's a little bit more situational, you know, you have to make sure that they don't get Geomancy set up and you're already on the field by the time they can get it set up, but you know, it could work if you decide to opt for that as well. Now, what I decided to do is get a little bit of EV spread practice in here. I don't normally do a whole lot of damage calcs, but I figured it would be nice to kind of help you guys out if you were ever, curious or unsure about how really to do EV spreads, how to go about making them. And I wanted to do a pure example. Now, this is a raw example. It's not supposed to be the best Xerneas thing. Maybe one of the best Xerneas sets out there is 252 special attack and speed. For all we know, that may just be one of the better ones at the end of the season. But this is just an example of how you kind of go about making a custom EV spread that is tailored for your team, because that is the key to EV spreads. Don't just slap on an EV spread because that's what someone else uses. Make sure that it is what your team would like to use and what it needs. So let's say my team, I'm running a Xerneas and I'm running my favorite set, which is Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, Geomancy, and Protect. So I don't have any other moves other than fairy type moves. And let's say my team is really weak to Groudon. It just naturally doesn't have a whole lot of ways to stop it. So even though Xerneas isn't a Groudon counter by any means, I want to make sure that once I have a Geomancy set up, at the very least I'm able to 2-hit KO bulky Groudon. That's my only offensive concern. I just want to make sure that I can 2-hit KO bulky Groudon. So what do I do at this point? Well, after I ask myself that question, what do I want to do offensively? Or you can change the question, what do I want to do defensively? What do I need to support? Whatever. I decide to do a damage calculation, and I check out what is around the minimum, attack EVs that I'll need to add. So in this case, a +2, after setting up Geomancy, 180 special attack EVs, a normal timid Xerneas, the Moonblast against a 252 HP, 76 special defensive Primal Groudon, so just basically a very bulky special defensive Groudon, does a 50.2% to 59.4%, guaranteeing a 2-hit KO. Now this is basically all I need. I don't need any more because it's a 2-hit KO. I can't get into 1-hit KO range. That's not possible at 252. Moonblast definitely will not one-shot a Groudon. But this is all I need. It does the job. It gets a 2-hit KO. And also, we only need to use 180 special attack EVs, not the full 252, meaning we save 72 points. Now, Xerneas is a little bit of a rough example because now the question is, well, what do we use those 72 points for? Normally, this is where you want to start adding into bulk or starting to add into, well, what if I want to live a, I believe Scizor doesn't, even with Life Orb, I don't think a Bullet Punch one-shot Xerneas, even if it has no investment. But let's say, Mega Scizor or something. I don't have that damage calculation, but maybe a Mega Scizor is able to one-shot Xerneas. So what I could do is figure out what that calculation is and see if I can survive that with these 72 points. So here's what we have now. We have a brand new Xerneas set. It's fairly similar as far as moveset goes. It's still a timid nature, still same item, but its EV spread's a little different. It's got 72 HP, 180 special attack, and 252 speed. Now mind you, again, this is purely an example. I'm not saying this is a good Xerneas set to use necessarily, but this is an example of me trying to customize my own EV spread. So now we have a slightly bulkier Xerneas. Now 72 HP is not going to make the biggest difference, but there may be a match or two in a tournament where your Xerneas survives with 2 or 3 HP. And you have nothing to thank but that new 72 HP EVs that you added, otherwise you wouldn't have lived it. So that's always something to consider. Adding bulk to your Pokemon is always a good thing because you never know what moves you're going to be living or not. Just adding extra bulk is always a good thing. And Xerneas does have really good natural HP. Now we could also change this up a little bit. We could maybe add some a little bit to defense, or maybe all of it into defense, maybe even some into special defense, although I wouldn't opt for that. But yeah, so this, again, for Xerneas isn't the best example necessarily because there's not a whole lot of moves that I could find that really mattered where this 72 spare EVs came into play. But there's so many sets where you can manage to take out some for speed. Maybe you don't want to be the speediest thing out on the field. You just want to outspeed a certain threat. So calculate how much speed you need and put the rest into bulk or into attack or other things. So that's how you can kind of go about custom EV spreads and making sure that they really work for your team. Maybe I'm not worried about opposing Xerneas, so I don't need to be 252 speed with a timid nature. Maybe I can opt for 72 speed EVs. That leaves me a ton left to use on another stat. I could add even more bulk and be super defensive and offensive at the same time. So that's just kind of like a teaser of how you go about making custom EV spreads, and I hope that kind of helps you guys. If you have any questions, be sure to ask them in the comments, and I will definitely reply. If there's enough demand for it, I may go into a sole video about EV spreads, but I think there's enough resources out there to kind of help you out. So to wrap up, basically Geomancy is the main reason why Xerneas is such a powerful sweeper. However, that is something that you need to keep in mind. It relies heavily on Geomancy, and a lot of players, especially newer players, just blindly click Geomancy and then attack. Even when they're in situations where they're going to get one-shotted by a Pokemon, they still click Geomancy because they're so on autopilot with how that's, you know, how you play Xerneas, and that's not always how you do it. So make sure you know that it relies on support and use that to your advantage. You know that it's probably going to need a fake out lead or, you know, Rage Powder or Follow Me in order to help, you know, get that Geomancy set up. That way it can sweep. So try and counter it as best you can and make sure that you know it's going to do things like that to get set up. And also, again, it runs a very basic and predictable moveset. It doesn't vary a whole lot. It does have a very wide move pool, so do keep in mind some of the other options it could get. You know, Thunder's another very scary option, kind of limits how good Ho is of a counter. Especially if they're running a Kyogre on their team, which could happen. Kyogre and Xerneas is still very popular as well. So, you know, do keep those things in mind. And do remember that there's only so many, you know, options that it can run, and that it's typically going to run. And again, you know, there are a lot of new players who are running it very, very predictably. It does have base 131 special attack, which is still very good. You do not have to use Geomancy on turn 1. It is possible that you actually attack and you're not +2. Do keep that in mind as well. Xerneas is very good even without Geomancy. It does make it a heck of a lot better, but there's not every situation where you can just clearly set up Geomancy. So make sure you analyze the situation if you're using a Xerneas and ask yourself, is Geomancy really the best idea, or is it better to get some offensive pressure on right now? Is it better to switch out? You know, consider all of your options and see what works the best. Geomancy is going to be a good option, but not in every situation. So do keep that in mind. And also do watch out for HP Ground or maybe even possibly HP Fire sets. I do see HP Fire probably increasing in usage as we continue on. I just think Ferrothorn is going to become such a much bigger threat as, you know, it's being used to counter Kyogre a lot more as well. So I could see people opting for that, but just, you know, consider the fact that you may think, you know, Ferrothorn or Scissors the perfect counter, and then it just hits you with an HP Fire and takes you out or something. So do also watch out for that. But that is about it. Xerneas, you know, a very strong Pokemon, but can be dealt with if, you know, handled accordingly. So that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always, and be sure to check out some of my other videos, guys. If you want, you can. If you want to stay in that VGC mindset, you know, I do have a Primal Kyogre analysis as well as a Groudon analysis. So you can click the annotation down below and go to those videos. Or if you want, you can also see some of my other stuff. I just recently did a top 5 2015 shiny reactions video where I did my 5 favorite shiny reactions that we got. All of those reactions are on the channel, so if you want to check those out, you can click on the annotation down below as well. And yeah, stay tuned for the next analysis video. It's actually going to be a little bit of a different one. It's going to be another Pokemon, but not a legendary. We've been doing legendaries so far, and we'll continue to do more legendaries as they're the most, you know, up-in-your-face kind of threats that this game has to offer right now. But there's one other Pokemon that's not a legendary, but it's also wreaking a lot of havoc, and it's also one that's very controversial if that doesn't already give it away. But stay tuned for that, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next analysis video. So, peace out.